It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
While all the previous rounds have been west of the Mississippi, this week takes place in the beautiful Southeast. Our drivers get ready to experience some Southern hospitality as we prepare for the Porsche Sprint Challenge USA West Series by Yokohama. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is former racer Joey Atterbury, along with sports car driver Ashley Freiberg. Joey, with Road Atlanta being a far cry from the West Coast, some of the drivers might not be as experienced with this circuit.
Thankfully, though, this is one of the top circuits that we've got here in North America, so even if you haven't been here, there's plenty of opportunity. Go out there, learn the track via various simulators. I'm sure there's tons of in-car video for everybody to go out there and review, and we've got cars officially on their outlap out here to start our qualifying session for the USA West Series.
And what will make this unique compared to what we just had earlier this morning with the North America Series is they run multi-class. Both the Caymans and the GT3 Cup cars, Ashley, will share the track out there. So trying to set yourself up is not merely just making sure you're far enough away from the car ahead. You need to check and see what other class cars you're approaching.
Yeah, for sure. And thankfully, the field is not too big to where you're constantly behind someone. So you can definitely find plenty of space out here on this racetrack. And you can see Scott Blinn was kind of charging forward there on his outlap. Now he's sort of slowed back down. He's warming his tires, getting ready for his first flyer.
And for those who have been following only the West Series, we finally have Scott in his more traditional garb out there in the 245. So it'll be a little bit easier for us to spot. as he had been running a different liveried car for the West races earlier on. But he will be our first to take that green flag, and he is definitely on it as he charges across the line. One of the big talking points, though, is not in his class. It is in the Cup Cars Pro-Am class, because Brandon Hankins and Daniel Hanley are tied on points coming into this weekend with 2 races to decide the title there in Pro-Am. So this is going to be extremely important where they finish, but we'll see where they wind up after our first race later today, because that will set us up for the situation coming into the finale tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, first we got to put some times on the board, and they only get 25 minutes to do so.
And this is 295. One of those drivers that you were just talking about is Brandon Hankins out here, so one of those championship contenders. I think one of the fun parts about Hankins and Hanley is that they're very, very similar on speed. It looks like we've got a yellow flag at turn number 1 here on the racetrack right now, but it has gone back green in that one sector, so nothing to worry about. But just kind of going back to the Hanley-Hankins championship fight, can't wait to see kind of how it ends up. Obviously, qualifying is how they're going to stack up, so it kind of gives us a relative performance, call it just analyzation, and then we'll get to see how they actually race come this afternoon.
Someone going slowly down the backstretch.
This is Hanley. I think he's just cooling it down a little bit, getting it ready for the first flyer.
In regards to that yellow at turn 1, I did look over and saw some dust kicked up. So I wonder if somebody just went wide or something for a brief moment over there. And thankfully it looks like we'll be able to carry on. Still waiting for Greg Herback to finish his out lap. He's been having a pretty decent season this second time around. Last year was his first season going pro racing, and has made massive improvements this season, getting himself multiple podiums, but still looking for that first class win. And we're still waiting on Jim Walsh to exit pit lane, as Kyle Washington just went across the line, puts himself on the board. Looks like Scott Blend right now our quickest overall and in the Masters Cup cars. Hanley fastest in the Pro-Am for the 992s. And then Tom Rogers was our quickest in the Cayman Masters. It's now switched to Tim Smith.
Doing a great job out there. Speaking of Tim Smith and that Cayman GT4 machine, always one of those big top 3 contenders in that class, as we now ride on board with Brandon Hankins going down the back straightaway. Let's see what the top speed is here in these GT3 Cup cars, already in 6th gear. 160 miles an hour even before he starts to head down the hill, so I'd guess probably somewhere in the range of about 165 miles an hour top speed, and then you really got to jump on it, use all of the brakes that these Porsches have underneath them.
He'll come across the line. Let's see where this winds up putting Hankins. It's going to be 3rd overall, just behind Scott Blend. But Alan Metney has returned. He usually has been racing over in the North America Series, but when we share weekends, as we are this time out, he's trying to get as much track time as possible, and so he's joining our West Series and has decided to put quite a distance between himself and the rest. Hankins 1.3 seconds off that pole.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the practice results from yesterday. Hankins was actually our fastest in that GT3 Cup class at a 123.6. So right now, his fastest lap time, a 123.8. He's pretty much right on top of it. I expect him to go out there, probably improve a little bit. But that lap out of Metney, that was quite rapid.
Tim Smith still at the top of the Caymans. Tom Rogers now with him. Those two have been battling all season long. However, Tim Smith closed in significantly, with Rogers getting only a 5th and a 4th at Laguna Seca. Smith finishing on the podium both times, but not managing to take the wins, having been beat out by Greg Checky. So wasn't able to maximize his points, and Greg Herback has taken the pole.
Nicely done there from the number 49 Cayman GT4 out there. So another one of these fast top 3 guys. Greg, I believe, a racer in his former lifetime as well, a downhill ski racer.
Exactly, and made the jump over. Said this feels a lot safer, honestly, and I don't blame him on that one. But He's taken to it quite well, like I said, only in his second professional season of racing, and is knocking on the door of maybe getting his first win. But multiple second places, multiple third places, and only twice off the podium in the Masters category this season. 18 minutes left. Good to see we've got just about everybody on the board, Ashley. So now it's just about finding improvement.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see both Metney and Blind running up front here. They are also Carrera Cup drivers, so it does give a good benchmark to these other drivers out here to see, where are they at in terms of their pace. And if they can, want to move up into Carrera Cup, then this is a good benchmark here. Alan Metney sometimes finish close to the overall top 10 in Carrera Cup, so lots of speed there. Scott Blind, as we see, he's constantly winning races, not just here, but also in Carrera Cup in the Masters class, so super fast drivers up front.
Greg Herback out here trying to put another lap in. And Tom Rogers, so I thought for a second he was on a fast lap himself, but it looks like that is updated and he has not set a good first time. In the meantime, we've got Knight out in the number 3 car and finds himself third appropriately in that Cayman class. He set a personal best first sector. He's got to make up 0.6 of a second to take that front row from Rogers in the Caymans.
We've got our eyes on the 49 here of Herback, who currently is our provisional pole sitter in that class. I got to say, Joe, what do you think about this livery? Now, he rolled out a different livery, call it the first half of the year, and then kind of came out with this scheme here in the second half. It looks quite similar to the 71 of Bradshaw, who he's kind of following there out onto the back straightaway. But I got to give it to him. They got a cool kind of design going on this car now.
Yeah, very distinct. Yeah, I got a little bit used to it, and I liked the old livery there on her back, but this one's just as cool and easy to spot, too, is the nice thing. Unfortunately, it shares quite a few colors there with the car that is near him right now, but the 49 over the hill. And second sector was good for him. Another improvement, personal best. He's already got the pole by about 0.1 of a second. Can he make himself safer as he crosses the line and even gets a little bit of a tow, but it looks like no, he will stay put at that 128.1.
He did technically get a tow, but I think it actually hurt him more than it helped him on that lap. So I think Bradshaw was doing everything he could to put down his lap, and unfortunately kind of Herback just ran up the back end there and cost himself a little bit of time. And now you see him kind of stuck here behind the 71 as they're both going slow down through the S's.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a cool-down lap for Greg. And behind them, hopefully they don't hold up this car.
Yeah.
That Cup car is on a flyer.
Yeah, and this is a little nervous as they're too wide, and I'm sure that Cup car is looking out the windshield saying, hey, leave a little bit of racetrack for me, too.
And I think it looks like maybe they weren't on a flyer this time. That's the 243.
This is Daniel Hanley.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it looks like he'll try and set himself up for this lap, get ahead of them, get himself some clear space.
And that last lap from Hanley was actually his personal best fastest lap at a 24.0. So you got to wonder if he was on another flyer or if he ran up on these cars early enough in this lap. I actually think usually when you turn a fast lap, it's nice to kind of cool it down the next lap, take a little bit of a mental reset. So obviously this one for the 243, not going to be very quick, but maybe he'll set this next one up.
So we mentioned they were tied on points coming into this. Hankins and Hanley separated by about 0.2 of a second, and they're third and fourth overall on our timing sheet. So they're setting themselves up for a very good battle if they stay put. That's going to be impetus for both of them to stay out on track and try and get some quicker times here. We'll follow him down the hill into the S's. Definitely a bit of a dangerous spot on the track, so hopefully he'll be able to manage it well as he comes up over turn 5, cresting the hill. You can see the car as it bumps over the curbs there.
Those exit curbs are pretty aggressive, but most of the time you have to use them in order to really get that exit speed out of turn number 5. So drivers, if they want to be nice to the car, can kind of stay off of that. If you want to be more aggressive and try to carry that speed, well, hold on to that Buck and Bronco underneath you.
And Ashley, where's some of the places where drivers can find time around this track? Where do you see a lot of times that maybe you could easily miss a tenth or two.
There's quite a few corners like that. I mean, coming down into turn 10 where he's heading right now, I mean, that brake zone is definitely very crucial, especially in these Cup cars where they perform super well under braking. You want to be really efficient there. Turn 3 is actually a corner that I find a lot of drivers can find some sneaky time through there because it's very flowy and fast and blind. So that's a good spot. Turn 5 as well. And then turn 7, that exit speed corner.
So that's Kyle Washington. Trying to figure out where exactly he's parked.
This looks to be the left of turn 5, at least from our camera view.
Yeah.
And so...
How did he wind up there?
Oh, I mean, look at all the front end. He doesn't have a front splitter on the car.
Oh, so he must have maybe gotten loose somewhere coming up the hill and wound up hitting on the right-hand side. Now, we don't have a red flag, so that's good news. It looks like we'll be able to continue the session unbothered. Wow, good catch on that. I didn't even notice the missing splitter.
Well, and I mean, you just look at the dead center of the bumper right underneath it. It certainly seems to have a little bit of damage down there. And we're going to be talking about turn number 5 all day. There's a entry curb on driver's right. There's the apex curb, obviously, right there on driver's left, and then the exit curb. However, if you abuse that entry curb on driver's right, it can definitely upset the platform of the car. And here comes Kyle Washington up the hill. I expect him to bring it down into pit lane this time.
I would hope so, yeah, if he's got that much damage on the car, and indeed he does. Looks like the 70 also in with him. By the way, Hanley, before we got distracted by Washington's woes, was able to pass Hankins, and it's now less than a tenth of a second between the two of them, with Hanley now on top. And he's also less than a tenth off of Scott Blend. So if he can find that little bit of time, he could put a Masters car between himself and his rival at the start.
It's funny. Actually, Daniel went into pit lane after he ran that lap, and then Hankins just decided to go back out to try to beat it. So they might be leapfrogging each other here till the end.
Well, and kind of to your point, I mean, there's 0.08 of a second separating those two drivers. So it doesn't take much to get back on top of that.
No, not at all. And like you were mentioning before as well, it sometimes does help to come into the pit, cool the tires down, sort of reflect on your session. And also, as these cars are driving around, they're laying down more Yokohama tire rubber and making the track a little bit more grippy. So this could be a great opportunity for Hankins.
So we watch him get ready to push now as he comes up over the hill and hits the timing line. So we'll keep an eye on his sectors, and he's got, my goodness, an open track. There's, I think, only 3 other cars out there right now, and the only other one near him is behind him, and they're in the Cayman, so he's not going to have any sort of obstructions.
And going back to Ashley's point, I like this because we're still in the morning time here in Georgia, so the track is continuing to get warm. I just checked the ambient temperature. It's up to 73 degrees now. It's supposed to be, call it low 80s today, so the temperature's still ramping up. That was a little bit of a wiggle there into turn number 5 like we saw a little bit earlier out of one of those Caymans. But it just means the track's going to get faster. The tires, they like the warm asphalt, but the engines, they still love this cool morning air.
He was about 0.4 off of Hankins' personal best first sector, or Hanley's personal best first sector. So Hankins having to make up some time here later in the lap if he hopes to try and topple it, but with it only being those 0.08 of a second, he doesn't have to do much. Just has to have one really good sector to nail it. He's coming down the back straight, and he's still a couple tenths off, so no personal bests yet in the first 2 sectors.
And let me check to see how far off they are. I would still kind of consider this a warm-up lap, about 0.9 off on that first sector, and call it about 3 or 4 tenths off in that second sector. Yes, it is starting to build the speed, but it's also building the confidence in that driver as we get our eyes on the 44 here of Tom Rogers heading down towards what is turn number 6 here at this racetrack.
And I saw another big wiggle from Hankins as we watched him through the final chicane. So, yeah, that lap was not his best out there. Tom Rogers off onto the back straightaway, starting to pick up speed with Tim Smith, his rival, still on the pole for the Masters category. And how about Chad Knight It's now up to second. So front row, Greg Herbeck has been pushed all the way to third.
I'd keep an eye on that 44 here as he kind of rounds out this lap. He just set a personal best sector number 2. His first sector was on top of what Tim Smith had done right before Knight had overtaken for provisional pole with a 127.6. Let's see what the 44 can do here. 128.0 does move him up into third in that class.
Herbeck back out on track as well, so he's trying to respond after sitting on pole for a little while, but it didn't last apparently, and finds himself having to really step up. Nobody's been able to get close to our overall pole sitter, though. Alan Metney still 1.1 seconds ahead of Scott Blend, and those two are usually very close on pace, so I'm surprised he's pulled that big of a gap out.
The 22.5 is just very, very fast. I look at yesterday's test day, the practice sessions, and there was only a couple cars that were hanging out in the 122s, and that's not even here in the USA West Series. That's looking over at the Sprint Challenge results for North America. So I think when we look at the GT3 Cup and what kind of lap time it can do, Metney is kind of putting that baseline down.
And when did Chad Knight take the pole?
His last lap he did.
Yeah, just when we were watching the 44, Chad Knight went to 127.6.
Wow. So now a tenth ahead of Tim Smith, Tom Rogers, who we've been following these last couple laps, trying to see if he can get any closer to either of them. Down through that last chicane of 10A and 10B. Is this going to be good enough? It does show an improvement in Sector 2, but the first sector didn't go any quicker, and he's going to need every ounce of speed here. He crosses the line, and he stays in third. Also a newcomer in terms of time, Chiacchetti has now put down a lap, so he moves into third in the Masters 992s.
Get a shot here of the number 3 car.
That's Chad.
So this is going to be your provisional pole sitter right now in that Cayman GT4 class for your Masters class. And I think that Chad is actually on a cool down lap right now. First sector about 5 seconds off, and you can just see the attitude of the car. He's happy with what he's done so far. He knows he's P1. Time to bring it on in and cool it down.
Yeah, he's sitting pretty at this stage. 5 minutes left. Someone could still get ahead of him, but that was a very good lap because, again, we don't see the Knights all that frequently in this series. They kind of have been in and out, but a great step back into the car. I think I just saw, was that Hankins that went by us, or was that Henry?
Yeah, Hankins is back out there again. So after he tried to make up those 8/100ths of a second, obviously maybe not too happy with the car, bring it down pit road, and I know that you can kind of adjust those tire pressures, so maybe it's just evaluating, I need a little bit more power down, or maybe I need a little bit more front end through turn number 5, and maybe the team can help him out that way.
Ashley, how much as a driver are you giving that feedback out there on the track during this session? Is there a lot of back and forth to try and make those adjustments?
I mean, usually by the time you get to qualifying, a lot of the setup stuff has been mostly settled down by this point. You do have a lot of tools in the car as well as the driver that you can adjust. So like for Hankins, we saw him get a little bit loose going into turn 5. So actually there are some tools in the car you can use to calm down the rear stability going into the corner. So your ABS settings you can change, your brake bias you can change as well, but if neither of those things work, you can come into pit lane, let your engineer know, and hopefully it's just a quick little change and then right back out, which is what looks like Hankins did.
We've been watching Herbeck here, but Joey, I have not seen much green on his timing and scoring here lately, so I'm not sure if he's still trying to set up for a good flyer, but if he's trying to find time, unfortunately it's not showing up.
No, and it's not going to be this lap, right? Sector 1 is significantly off, so it's not going to be a flyer this time by here for this 49. But what it will tell us is he going to bring it down into pit lane, because there's still 3.5 minutes, almost 4 minutes left in qualifying. So if Herbeck decides to go back out there and do another flyer lap or a couple flying laps, he does have the time to do it. Let's see as he crosses up over the hill. He's going to hook the hard right, bring it down into pit lane.
Here's an interesting one. Car 249, that's Chiacchetti. Unapproved work on car during qualifying, loss of all times thus far. So that will set him backwards. He was last among those who have set a time in the 992. So it won't change things dramatically, but that's got to be frustrating.
Typically, you can only change certain things on the car once you actually enter the qualifying session, and obviously maybe the driver wanted a bigger change out of it. And when I look at the board and kind of where that 249 is, I'm okay with it. If the driver's not too happy, if it needs a bar change or if it needs something significant underneath that car, why don't you go ahead and make it and have them go out there, reevaluate the thing, and make sure it's going the right way for them.
That's a good point. I mean, set it up for the race, I suppose. Make sure it's fast there, because if you don't have the outright lap speed, might as well make sure that you've got the race pace. And this is Hankins coming down into pit lane. 2.5 minutes. I don't think he's going to be able to get back out there in time to set another lap unless they really turn that car around quickly. Chiacchetti being the only one out means we might be done with qualifying unless we see somebody emerge here soon.
And I would expect for this 49 to at least put a lap time on the board after having that little bit of race control message that you were just mentioning. So here is Chiacchetti, the only car that we've still got out on the racetrack coming up over what is turn number 11. Looks like he is going to go ahead and start another flyer lap. Quite honestly, he's got time to put in the 2 full qualifying laps too.
This is only his third race of the weekend coming up later this afternoon. Showed up at Laguna Seca, took a pair of 5th places. And the way things are going, we have 4 cars here, so he's got a good shot at maybe getting onto the podium. We're going to ride on board with Alessandro coming down through the valley here of the S's. And then, woof, look at that big correction as he flies through there.
That was a big moment of oversteer. Definitely saw that correction through the steering wheel, and then you saw how much he rode the exit curbs at turn number 5, and then coming up to, in my opinion, probably the most important corner in terms of lap time, turn number 7. It leads you out onto the longest straightaway that we've got here at Road Atlanta. You want to get to 100% throttle as soon as you can, because look at how long this thing is.
It is just an absolute runway down here. And in fact, it literally was at one point. They used to land planes, the old owners of this track, way back in the day on that back straightaway. But Chiacchetti is trying to keep it firmly planted on the ground as he weaves through 10A and 10B. Let's see what this lap is just for posterity's sake is. As he set a personal best second sector, he crosses the line. As he kicked up a lot of dust. He was way far on the exit there.
Yeah, he pushed pretty far wide at the exit of turn number 12 and puts down a lap time of a 125.9, but that puts him right in the kind of the thick of it. You see not too far off of Wilgus and Krigler directly in front of him, as well as Kyle Washington.
If I'm honest, Ashley, even though there's a lot of places on this track that scare me, that final corner definitely is one that just kind of always makes me a bit nervous because just how close those walls are.
Oh, we got a little bit wide there in turn 5 as well. Yeah, I mean, definitely this final corner is pretty sketchy. But the good news is I can see from this angle there's not too much of a dip after the curb. That's when things get really gnarly, is when the grass and the dirt starts to wash away from tires being dropped there, and then it becomes an actual hole in the ground, which will suck you off the track and into the wall. So thankfully that's not happening there, and as long as you keep your steering wheel straight, it's really not as scary of a situation as it might seem from the outside.
Yeah, typically when we talk about ruts, we're talking about dirt racing, but yeah, I'm sure it can be a big problem here.
I grew up a Spec Miata racer. We know how to make those. You know? I'm sure. The dirt is part of the racetrack.
Right.
Yeah, wherever you find the grip. All right, so that's going to be it, as the checkered flag is out. So he's just bringing it on in, and our session is over. And Alan Metney has come in with a splash and taken the pole over everybody else by more than a second. Scott Blend is still your Masters pole sitter. Will be next to him there on the front row in second overall. Daniel Hanley will start from third, next to his title rival, Brandon Hankins, starting from fourth. Kyle Washington, good enough for fifth, although the car had a bit of damage on it, so we'll hope that that is able to get back out and running for the race itself. Krigler will be starting from P6, Wilgus in 7th, and Chiachetti in P8. Then you get to your Caymans with Chad Knight starting on the pole. Great job for the 3-car. Tim Smith will be starting 2nd, and 3rd goes to Tom Rogers. Greg Herback 4th, Henry Marshall 5th, and Bradshaw 6th. Jim Walsh did not set a lap in that session. We have one more qualifying session this morning here at Road Atlanta, so tune in as we've got more Porsche Sprint Challenge coming your way.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.